Welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal. The top stories this hour. PETROAN urges marketers to cut fuel prices as Kauru communities call for re-establishment of military strike force base to address escalating security concerns in Kaduna State. Also coming up, deadly shelling airstrikes kill 56 in Khartoum. The details coming up now. Let's begin by telling you that Dangote Petroleum Refinery has reduced the ex-depot price of petroleum motor spirit, commonly known as petrol, from 950 naira to 890 naira with immediate effect. In a statement, the company said the price adjustment is in response to favorable developments in the global energy sector and a significant decline in international crude oil prices. The Group Chief Branding and Communications Officer Anthony Chiejina says this latest move follows a similar decision made on 19th January when a price increase was implemented due to increased crude oil costs. The statement also noted that the price reduction would significantly lower the cost of petrol across the country, generating a positive ripple effect throughout the broader economy. The refinery also called on marketers across the country to ensure that the benefits of the reduced price are passed on to the Nigerian public. Meanwhile, the Petroleum Products Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria has called on fuel marketers to reduce the pump price of premium motor spirit following a drop in the ex-depot price from 950 naira to 890 naira per litre at Dangote Refinery. Speaking on the development, PETROAN National President Billy Gillis-Harris welcomes the price cut by emphasizing the need for a gradual transmission in retail prices. He explained that many fueling stations still have stock purchased at the previous higher rate, making an immediate price adjustment difficult. However, he urged marketers to reflect the price change on new stock purchased from today. PETROAN reaffirmed its commitment to firm prices, or rather fair pricing and sustainability in the downstream petroleum sector, pledging to work closely with Dangote Refinery and other stakeholders to ensure consumer benefits. Let's also tell you that the Adamawa State chapter of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria has warned of a potential industrial showdown with the Nigerian Customs Service following the recent seizure and auctioning of petroleum products in the state. IPMAN has threatened to halt operations completely, protesting what it described as unjustified confiscation of legal sourced fuel, a move it says is detrimental to economic stability in the region. Last Thursday, customs officials seized 199,496 liters of premium motor spirit valued at 199.5 million naira, and later auctioned the fuel at a subsidized rate of 613 naira per litre at selected fueling stations, while 25-litre jerrycans were sold for 10,000 naira each. Reacting to the development, oil marketers in Adamawa insist that the confiscated fuel was not smuggled, stressing that it was legitimately acquired and in full compliance with industry regulations. Now let's begin by telling you that the Private Telecommunications and Communications Senior Staff Association of Nigeria has rejected the planned nationwide protest by the Nigerian Labour Congress over the recent approved 50% increase in Telecoms tariff. The PTECSSAN, in a letter addressed to the NLC, the leadership, argued that the tariff hike, though painful, is necessary to prevent the imminent collapse of the sector. The NLC had earlier rejected the tariff increase, describing it as an additional burden on Nigerians already grappling with rising cost of living. The labor union directed its affiliate unions to mobilize members for a protest scheduled for February 4, 2025. However, the PTECSSAN, which represents workers in the telecom sector, expressed disappointment that the NLC took the decision without consulting it. Now, away from that, Nigeria's Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu, has stated that the decision to abolish the death penalty ultimately rather rests with Nigerian citizens. Speaking in Abuja during a courtesy visit by a delegation from the Death Penalty Project alongside officials from the British High Commission, Kalu emphasized the need for robust debate, collaboration, and stakeholder engagement on the issue. He highlighted that over 130 countries have abolished the death penalty in law or practice, while Nigeria's current legal framework still allows capital punishment for crimes such as murder, armed robbery, and treason. Referencing death row statistics, Kalu underscored the pressing need for criminal justice reform, stressing that laws in Nigeria must evolve in line with societal needs and realities. And so live to speak more on this, we're joined by legal practitioner Uthman Tochukwu. Uthman, thank you very much for joining us. Good afternoon. Now, Uthman, if you're there, from a legal perspective, what are the implications of abolishing the death penalty in Nigeria, and how would it align with international human rights standards?
I thank you very much for having me. It is a good conversation that we are now trying to provoke again, because I understand that for quite some time now, years back, Amnesty International had earlier canvassed for the abolishment of death penalty. And the argument is that it contravenes the provisions of International Convention on Civil and Political Rights. But then we need to also look at it from point of legal activism, in the sense that death penalty is part of the provisions in our ground norms, our constitution, right? If you look at section 33 sub 2 of the 1999 constitution that provides for right for life, right? It also provides for derogation for some of those rights, meaning that right to life is not absolute, because the court can find you guilty of capital offenses such as culpable homicide, treasonable felony, treason, and the likes of other capital offenses that attract death penalty. And as such, your life would be constrained at that point by the state, because the court had pronounced so. The consequences of all these issues is that they are all a question of law, and that would call for a very serious constitutional amendment. It's not enough to have this conversation without approaching the right institutions and authority to see how they can bring it to its full effect. There are other gray areas that we have to also look at it, because if you say that death penalty should be abolished, you need to also look at it from the point of Sharia too, because those are things that is constitutionally recognized, and under Sharia there are certain crimes that warrant a life to be taken. And when we have to also look at abolishment of death penalty, we need to make sure that we'll fine-tune it so that it will not be unconstitutional, going against the provisions of the established laws.
Okay, then, how do you think the Nigerian judiciary would adapt to the abolition of the death penalty, and what changes would be required in sentencing guidelines and also practices?
If you look at the provisions of the constitutions, they are very clear that all offenses that relates to capital offenses attract death penalty. And this has provided difference between offenses that is not capital offenses and offenses that is capital offenses. The two differences is that if I kill somebody, for instance, God forbid, I would be charged for murder because there is an intention for me to kill. And what the law provides is that the person should be killed if found guilty at the end of the day. That is murder. But on the other hand, where you kill without intention, which is manslaughter, right? The law provides for life imprisonment, which may be 20, 25 years, as the case may be, and you finish your sentence. Now, the implication would be that if we abolish death penalty, you won't be able to differentiate in law, what is the sanction for murder, treason, and manslaughter. They become the same thing, because if you say there should not be death penalty, you are also saying that there should be, you are going to provide another alternative, which will maybe life sentence, which the law had already recognized. But the judiciary would only take from, the collective effort of the National Assembly that is saddled under Section 5 of the 1999 Constitution to make laws, right? If the National Assembly are ready to amend the Constitution, then we'll put it to public debate and see whether or not it's something that Nigeria can do away with. But it's also important to also look at it from point of territorial aspect of Nigeria. The fact that other countries have abolished it does not fit into our own system too, because we need to also look at it from the rate of crimes that are being committed in other countries before we can now canvass the same argument in Nigeria. These things are not one cap fits all. Yes.
So in line with that, what are the conditions outside of Nigeria that make it maybe not sustainable in Nigeria?
You need to look at it from a point of criminal rate, that are being committed in Nigeria and then vis-a-vis other countries. How consistent is crime rate with relation to murder and treasonable felony? Remember that under the law, you are not allowed to take over government, without following through democratic process. Some of those things are capital offenses in Nigeria and should attract death penalty. Now, if you say they should remove death penalty in that sense, what did that mean is that people can just wake up one day and want to usurp the power of the president and take over power in Nigeria, start following the legal means, because the consequences has been deterred, has been reduced. No longer death penalty, maybe life imprisonment. People will just feel, if it's life imprisonment, after all, I may even get lucky. I may not die after 20 years or 25 years in prison. I'll still come back and still have some life to live. But when you say that most of these issues that borders around death penalty and the reason behind the inculcation of death penalty in our laws is just for purpose of deterrence. It is actually very difficult to prove a case of murder, because the onus is on the accused, is on the prosecution to prove beyond reasonable doubt. And proving beyond reasonable doubt is not the same thing as proving beyond every shadow of doubt. So it's a very difficult thing to prove. One thing is that the law provides for death penalty, and another thing is that it is most difficult to prove those capital offenses.
Okay. Can you discuss the potential human rights implications of retaining the death penalty in Nigeria, particularly in light of international trends and best practices?
If you look at it from a human rights perspective, it's understandable that under Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended in 2011, Section 33 provides for right to life, right? And every other section from 33 up to Section 44 provides for different kinds of rights that is inalienable and accrue to every human being as far as you are a human being, right? But then Section 45 of the 1999 Constitution provides for derogation of some of those rights. In other words, Section 45 is saying that those rights, you have it inalienable, nobody can take it away from you. But the exceptions was provided under Section 45, meaning that if you breach any of the provisions of Section 45, right, that means your right in that instance is going to be withdrawn. So these are issues that has to deal with law. I had hinted initially that it's a question of law and judicial activism. We need to take it up to the appropriate authorities and begin to, provoke the conversation and see whether we could convince the National Assembly to amend the laws, both the criminal code and penal code, and that of the Constitution, and then bring it to public purview for Nigerians to put it into debate. If it's what majority of Nigerians had agreed to do away with. We're in democracy. The majority should have the voice and it should be abolished. But then it has to deal with constitutional amendment.
Well, Uthman Tochukwu, I want to say thank you very much for giving us your expert advice for this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now we're going to break, and when we return, Kauru communities call for establishment of military strike force base to address escalating security concerns. We'll bring you the details after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Anti-Graft Matters now. The chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ola Olukoyede, says underdevelopment would be a thing of the past if every citizen sees corruption as a common enemy. Olukoyede said Nigerians condemn corruption yet rally behind corrupt leaders when they are being prosecuted. He said this while receiving officials of the Center for Crisis Communication, led by Chris Olukolade, in Abuja. He stated the EFCC will partner to raise public awareness on its activities and the importance of integrity among Nigerians. And away from that, workers of the Abia State judiciary on Friday, January 31st, resumed work in compliance with the suspension of the 3-week-old industrial action by the leadership of the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria. The chairman and secretary of the union in the state on Thursday issued a press statement informing members to resume duties with immediate effect, having received all their outstanding salaries from the government. News Central's Chinwe Ogele was at the State High Court in Umuahia, and here has this report.
The entrance gate is open for the first time in 21 working days. Lawyers, magistrates, judges, support staff, and even those standing trial or seeking justice are all shut out of these premises the whole time. On Friday, being the first work day after the suspension of the industrial action by the Judiciary Staff Union in Abia State, life seems to have returned to the State High Court as the security personnel position themselves at their duty post, with a handful of workers in sight. Cleaning and dusting of the courtrooms and offices are going on. Since the strike is over, judiciary staff have once again become too camera shy and so will not speak about their plight. However, the lawyers willingly share their predicament.
We have lost revenue, we have lost clientele, because most of us do not have any other thing to do apart from this job, upon which is our calling.
It has really affected us because it is from the courts. When we come to the court, we get the money we used to take care of our family.
They are happy that they can access the courts and have their cases handled expeditiously.
Now the court is sectional. I believe that there shall be a lot of improvement based on what was on ground before now.
Many people have been languishing in the prison yards and the police cells. If you go to police cell now, everywhere is congested. So we believe that it will help in the speedy dispensation of justice.
People are in the cell. Police are now doing their own bit. Police cannot sit as court. Police cannot sit as the umpire, as the prosecutor, which defeats the terms of justice. But today we are elected, at least we are back to job.
Abia State government is able to avert a major industrial crisis with the fulfillment of the agreement with Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria in the state, but must avoid such friction with any labor union in the future. In Umuahia for News Central, I am Chinwe Ogele.
The National Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, Samuel Anyanwu, has petitioned security agencies alerting them of a threat to peace and security. In the petition dated January 1st, 2025, which was addressed to the Department of State Security, the DSS, the National Security and Civil Defense Corps, and the Supreme Court and Court of Appeal, Anyanwu accused the party's governors of inviting chaos with the recognition of Sunday Udokoye as a National Secretary. It stated that the police should be aware that an appeal has been filed in the Supreme Court against the quoted judgment. Furthermore, the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja granted an order on January 13, 2025, clearly directing both parties to maintain status quo ante bellum pending the determination of the substantive application. And to health matters, residents of Plateau State will soon heave a sigh of relief from experiences of poor human and material resources in accessing quality healthcare in the state. Rising from a 5-day strategic planning retreat for the management of the Plateau State Specialist Hospital, both the head of service in the state, Stephen Pam, and the Commissioner for Health, Dr. Cletus Shercook, represented at the event, said residents of the state and beyond will begin to enjoy improved healthcare delivery in the state. Now, News Central's Chizoba Nyanwe tells us more.
Established in 1933 as a colonial hospital to provide healthcare to the people of the state, the deplorable nature of the hospital began to raise concerns with the displeasure of patients during visitations. The government of Plateau State has charged the management of the hospital to bring on board measures that will complement the recently improved health facility with the state-of-the-art equipment recently installed.
Can we craft the future here? Can we make sure our tertiary healthcare institution, the Plateau State Specialist, takes the lead in crafting this future? With a plan and a blueprint for the future, I think we have started in the right direction. And by doing so, already you're creating a landmark.
The Chief Medical Director of the hospital assures that the essence of the 5-day retreat will yield desired fruits.
We are hoping that at the end of this retreat, we'll be able to have a document, that will not just help us to move in the right direction, but will also make us globally competitive.
For these participants, nothing less of expertise is expected.
Since I started working, I've never had this kind of planning before, and it has actually given us an exposure on how the Plateau State Specialist Hospital can be moved to the future, to be prepared in terms of healthcare delivery.
This workshop is very good because we are all working for the benefit of the patients who are at the center of care, and we want to give them all the care they need, not only for now but the future.
With the plans that are being churned out and be modified in such a way that the hospital will be at a stage in the next 5 years at a point where globally things that are obtained here could be compared to those that are obtained in other parts of the world. Is really something that is inspiring.
With these assurances, residents of Plateau and beyond can only wait patiently when these words will materialize into actions that can be felt. In Jos, Plateau State for News Central, I am Chizoba Anyanwe.
The Kauru Local Government Community Development Associations Forum has urged the federal government to expedite action in establishing a military strike force to tackle escalating insecurity in the area. The appeal follows the kidnapping of 17 residents in Fadan Ruruma village, Kumana chiefdom, on Thursday. In a statement released on Saturday by its public relations officer Daniel Achi, the forum specifically called on the Kaduna state government and relevant authorities to set up a strike force in Kauru and Kumana axis to complement the existing unit in Damakasua Chawai chiefdom. Achi expressed deep concern over the frequent attacks and kidnappings, warning that the unabated activities of bandits were making life unbearable for residents, with daily abductions and violence instilling fear across the communities. And away from that, now governors from the Lake Chad Basin countries have agreed to enhance the operational capacity of the Multinational Joint Task Force, the MNJTF, and secure full control of the Lake Chad Island to eliminate terrorist remnants and their hideouts. This resolution was reached at the 5th Lake Chad Governors Forum held in Maiduguri, Borno State, where leaders reaffirmed their commitment to regional security and stability. Now, News Central's Kumar Kiral reports from Maiduguri.
For years, terrorist groups have used remote Lake Chad islands as strongholds, launching attacks across borders. Regional stakeholders resolved to call for military forces to secure the islands and clear remnants of the terrorists in the region at the 5th Lectured Governors Forum in Maiduguri.
While we are putting our efforts on the unfortunate incident and accident of Boko Haram, at the same time we should not forget to continue with the efforts so that the Lake Chad can be recharged.
Officials stressed the importance of job creation, education, and social initiatives to prevent radicalization.
We should be careful by relying on international or partner support, because security situation is a self-help situation that do not waste time by anticipating a security and a logistic support from a third party.
We advocate, of course we provide technical support, we provide capacity building, but the most important is the role that is central of the governments.
This situation negatively impacts the sexual reproductive health services, family planning, maternal mortality, gender-based violence, and young and people situation.
Yobe State Governor Wemala Buni emerged as the chairman of the forum for the next 2 years.
With justice done to the theme of the meeting, rebuilding the Lake Chad Basin, consolidating gains, commitment to peace, cross-border cooperation, security and sustainable development for resilient community. It is my hope, as the host governor, that we will internalize, domesticate, and act on the lessons and resolutions of this meeting to move forward from discussion to an all-inclusive action-packed implementation that ensures everyone is carried along for the growth and development of the region.
Enhance civil society organization and traditional institution engagement in regional stability, as well as updating and facilitating implementation of the territorial action plans formed part of resolution. Also, the forum agrees that the next meeting of the Governors Forum shall take place in 2026 in the Republic of Niger. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umar Kirawa.
Welcome back. Now we continue in West Africa, where a landslide at a gold mine in southern Mali has claimed the lives of at least 12 people, with many others still missing, most of them women. Mali, one of Africa's leading gold producers, remains among the world's poorest nations. Fatal landslides are common at gold mining sites as authorities struggle to regulate the artisanal mining of the precious metal. The latest tragedy occurred in the village of Danga, where a landslide trapped a group of miners, the majority of whom were women.
Danga duru kugoya wolonfla tino de be baraka yoron nako unana anu ukumana am partenaire kumana ko ay yoro dama ay bara damna donc musu ya layni ka erifla di u fana mako utuma son mais on fana anyu wajibiya u ka son parce que yan sigilende do woma. Donc, erifla o de be muso bolo 6h 8h ni problème bena ni ciow do lu de mamarla do lu ba do mais na bi na muso taye muso ta do so ni de mamena ni chere do aba do afen do be kana kwa amba fe ngame muso to do parce que lu te jigi de mangono ni pin na nyona te muso te jigi de mangono ciow de be jigi.
In the east of the continent, at least 56 people have been killed in artillery shelling and airstrikes across Greater Khartoum as Sudan's devastating war continues to escalate. A busy market in army-controlled Omdurman was hit by RSF shelling, killing 54 people and injuring 158 others, overwhelming Al Nal Hospital, according to medical sources at the Sudan Health Ministry. The RSF has denied responsibility for the attack, while Doctors Without Borders described the scene at the hospital as utter carnage. The Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Force have been locked in a power struggle since April 2023, with the conflict intensifying as the army fights to reclaim control of the capital. And President Donald Trump says he ordered airstrikes on ISIS and affiliated targets in Somalia on Saturday. While the U.S. military has routinely struck targets in the East African nation in recent years, Saturday's strikes would be among the first Trump has ordered during his second term in office. In a statement, Trump said these killers, who were found hiding in caves, threatened the United States and its allies. The strikes destroyed the caves they live in and killed many terrorists without harming civilians. Past targets of U.S. strikes in Somalia include fighters from ISIS and the group Al-Shabaab, which is associated with Al-Qaeda. In Central Africa, Burundi's President Evariste Ndayishimiye says the conflict in eastern DR Congo risks escalating into a broader regional war as Africa's top health agency warns the fighting could spark new outbreaks of serious diseases. The Rwanda-backed armed group M23 has vowed to march on the capital Kinshasa after capturing eastern DR Congo's biggest city of Goma earlier this week. After taking Goma, the group is now pushing south into the neighboring South Kivu province as the United Nations warns the escalating conflict has killed at least 700 people in less than a week. Burundi's president said the ongoing crisis is not only a threat to his country, but the entire East African region.
La communauté internationale ne voit pas les conséquences. Je vous dis que si ça continue comme ça, la guerre risque d'être généralisée dans la région. Parce que le peuple ne peut pas se laisser faire. Si le Rwanda continue à faire des conquêtes dans le territoire et dans notre pays, je sais qu'il va arriver même au Burundi. Parce qu'il est en train d'entretenir des jeunes réfugiés. Il les arme. Maintenant, il est en train de les aguerrir dans la guerre du Congo. Un jour, il veut venir au Burundi. Nous n'allons pas accepter. La guerre sera généralisée. Nous avons une menace dans la région. Ce n'est pas le Burundi seulement. La Tanzanie, l'Ouganda, le Kenya, c'est à toute la région, c'est une menace. Si l'Est du Congo n'a pas la paix, la région n'a pas.
Now, in the meantime, thousands of internally displaced people in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo are being forced to return home as the Rwanda-backed M23 rebels tightens their grip on Goma, the region's largest city. The rapid advance of M23, which has vowed to march on the capital Kinshasa, has sent shockwaves across the continent. Africa's top health agency has warned that the conflict could trigger new outbreaks of serious diseases, compounding the humanitarian crisis. For decades, Eastern DRC has been plagued by violence, with an estimated 6 million people killed in ongoing clashes between armed groups. The fall of Goma has sparked international condemnation and renewed fears of an escalating regional conflict.
Kila siku mizigo kumugongo, vitu inaleta susimaki, hatuna amani. Tunaziomba maake bakubwa baikale bajifunze kui probleme, baone ginzi banezi malisa vita na sie tuikale kwetu tuanze lima mashamba. Balituhamishaka tukibaketuhamishamu mu Bushagara. Tulibakia mule, saa vita ilikuwa tena tukiogopa tukakimbilia Goma. Saa tulifika kule tukisikia sema nyumba wako na bomola. Jo tunarudia tunakuta hakuna na nyumba. Jo tunatarudia kwetu mara moja, hakuna nafasi ya kubaki.
Balikuya bakitukimbisha twende. Na sisi tukefunga vitu tukaenda. Hapa tuko tunarudia kwa kulogota bukuni na wengine balishajibebea makuni zote. Nabeba vyote, basi sisi wenyewe manyumba tunakosa. Jo vile tuko tunateseka vile. Sisi ni mateso basi. Mvula yote inaenda nyesha, inaenda tuishia kwa na watoto. Kose kama watoto batie wapi? Nakosa kama uwafunike, utawafunika nini? Jibu ni hapana. Jo vile tunateseka vile.
Welcome back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu departed for Washington on Sunday ahead of a crucial meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump later this week. Speaking before his departure, Netanyahu emphasized that discussions in Washington could reshape the Middle East, highlighting key issues such as defeating Hamas, securing the release of hostages, and addressing Iran's terror network, which he said threatens regional and global stability. He also noted that being the first foreign leader to meet Trump at the White House since the inauguration underscores the strength of the Israeli-American alliance. Families of released Palestinian prisoners cheered as they hug and kiss their relatives in West Bank's Ramallah after Hamas and Israel completed the fourth hostage prisoner swap. More than 100 Palestinian prisoners have been freed from Israel's Offa prison after a delay. They arrived into Ramallah in the occupied West Bank by bus and were met by a huge crowd who gathered to welcome their release. One of the released Palestinian prisoners mentioned that his two sons were born from sperm smuggled out from Israeli prison.
النصف المهرب هم سفراء للحرية، هم كانوا الرئة اللي بتنفس منها من خلف القضبان من بين الجدران الرطبة اللي نخرط الرطوبة بعظامنا، ولكن هذول النطف هم بإذن الله الحلم القادم والمستقبل للأجيال.
شكرا لكل أهل غزة ولكل من ساهم في هذه الإنجاز، لبنان والعراق وسوريا وإيران واليمن. يوم الأربعاء احنا دخلنا عوفر، تم الاعتداء علينا بممارسات عنيفة. نعم، من وحدة الكيتر الموجودة داخل السجن.
يعني شعور لا يوصف أكيد.
Sports now. Remo Stars maintained their strong push at the top of the Nigerian Premier Football League with a 2-1 victory over Sunshine Stars, securing their fourth away win of the season, despite the fixture being at home in Ikene. Alex Uyowa, his early diving header in the 9th minute gave Remo Stars the lead, and Ibrahim Abubakar doubled their advantage in the 28th minute with a composed lob over the goalkeeper. Sunshine Stars fought back in the 67th minute to pull one back, but Remo Stars held firm to seal the victory. With 45 points from 22 matches, Remo Stars remains at the top of the table, while Shooting Stars trail with 36 points and 2 games in hand. Rose Odusanya claimed a record-extending 10th title at the 56th Molade Okoya Thomas Table Tennis Championship, defeating Aminat Fashola by 3-1 at the Molade Okoya Thomas Hall of the Teslim Balogun Stadium. Fashola took the opening set 11-8, but Odusanya responded with an overwhelming comeback to extend her reign as the tournament's top female player. In the men's category, African Games silver medalist Matthew Kuti battled back from a set down to defeat Abdul Basit Abdul Fatai by 3-1 in a gripping final that lasted over an hour, sealing another title for Team Lagos. Kuti also lost the first set 11-6 before sweeping the next 3 sets to clinch the win.
I want to thank the Almighty God for winning this tournament for me. Before I won this game, I've been training hard, I've been working hard, I've been jogging, but I thank God for winning this tournament for me because it's not by my power, but by God's grace.
I'm very, very happy. This is not my first time. Last time I met the guy. The guy is a tough player, so I beat him 4-1. And this time around, we still meet again. I told myself I'm going to fight, and I won.
Impressive. Our former UFC middleweight champion Israel Adesanya suffered his second career knockout loss, falling to Nusruddin Imavov via second-round TKO at UFC Fight Night 250 in Saudi Arabia. Adesanya started strong with hard low kicks, but struggled against Imavov's pressure. The French fighter landed a stiff shovel hook in the first round before delivering a massive right hand early in the second, dropping Adesanya to the canvas. A follow-up uppercut and ground strike forced referee Mark Goddard to stop the fight at 30 seconds of round 2. Now this marks Adesanya's third consecutive defeat at his first in a non-title fight, while Imanov secured the biggest win of his career, establishing himself as a rising contender in the middleweight division. And that's all this hour for the news. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories that we brought your way. PETROAN has urged marketers to cut fuel prices. In Kauru community have called on establishment of military strike force base to address escalating security concerns. We also told you that deadly shelling airstrikes killed 56 in Khartoum. Now do remember you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.